Welcome to the Pistons Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank every one of you for listening. It means a lot to me. Please subscribe. I'm excited, Piston fans. I'm excited about this season. I think it's going to be very entertaining. And I can go back to when the Pistons were they weren't great, but they were entertaining. When Isaiah Thomas was his first couple years in the league, we had Vinny and we had Kent Benson and Bill Lambier, but we didn't have Rodman and Dumars and all those guys. And before we were really good. And it was fun because we didn't have the pressure of winning like we did later on. There was pressure, man, when we had those great teams. You know, you're always fighting for seeding. Every game you needed to win. But anyway, I think it's going to be entertaining basketball. I think JB's talking about pushing the pace all the time. Our defense is much improved. We're going to talk today, though, about lots of things. We're going to talk about, we're going to preview the season, but we're going to talk about Cade getting snubbed, about JB and our Piston defense, and some predictions of mine, and Pistons over-under, and maybe we're going to talk a little bit about Killian Hayes and Monty. So hang on, and I hope you enjoy this episode. But so first we'll talk about Cade getting snubbed. So I always talk about these lists that people put out, ranking players and things. It's impossible, and there's no way everybody's going to always get mad and feel snubbed, and including me. But Cade had been out, and I think Hoops Hype and CBS had rankings of all top 100 players, and Cade was like 37 or 39 or 47, and I felt good about that. So that's not, there's so many good players. You think that sounds like a lot of players, but there are so many good players in the league. I always talk when people say this guy's a top 10 player. Well, usually that means they're probably somewhere between 10 and 15. It's just really hard to rank players. But 67, no way. Because here's some of the guys that they ranked above Cade. R.J. Barrett, who had a great year last year. Josh Hart, that plays for the Knicks. In like 90-some minutes in the preseason this year, he took 6 shots. And you tell me that guy's more valuable and more important than Cade. He's a good player. I like him. He's a good role player. Kadavius Caldwell-Pope, he's rated above Cade. And he's a role player. And same thing with Quigley's a really good player. And Malik Monk is really good. I mean, he was 6th man of the year, but, he's not Cade. And Chris Middleton, who's hurt again and out for the beginning of the season, he's ranked 63rd. And when he's healthy, but he just hasn't ever been healthy. Here's the point, though. Talk to all the general managers I don't know who made this list, but if you talk to all the general managers in the league, and you tell me anybody that's serious and that they would take any of these players, and I'm not talking about, so there's different types, there's different quantifications that you could say about different players, like would you want this player for the next 5 years or 3 years or 10 years or whatever. So we're not saying this. I'm saying who I would want for this coming year and who the general managers would want for this upcoming year. And I can promise you they would all take Cade, even over Chris Middleton and Caldwell Pope. And there's a whole bunch of guys on this list that are ranked above Cade that you would not take. So that's just the thing. And sometimes I know they probably do things to just get people fired up. So on the Athletic NBA podcast, Andrew Schlecht, who's really good, and Alex Spears, they had a little draft, the two of them. Every year there's like 4 to 7 players that are new all-stars. Every year. It's just, it doesn't seem like there'd be that many new ones. It seemed like most years they would be a lot of the same guys year after year because a lot of the same guys are really good, and how do you, supplant those guys. But that's the way it is. It works out that, a lot of times 5 or 6 guys, new all-stars. And so they've been real successful. They do this every year where they take turns drafting and seeing who they can get. And they have picked each of them, I think, like about 2 of the new all-stars they got right. So anyway, they did their draft and Cade was one of them. So, and, he may have been picked the 5th player out of the 6 guys that they drafted, but they think that, he's got that much promise, and that's hard because, again, we talked about this. Everybody knows we have to win, and we got a real tough schedule at the beginning. But if we could just show some spark, Another thing that concerns me is, the narrative for these awards is so often started at so much weight is put on the beginning of the season. So if a guy gets off the fast start, like Benedict Mathurin or somebody, everybody jumps on the hype train, and then sometimes they just kind of fizzle out, but they still got that hype. And so that's going to be challenging for Cade. But I think our team is going to be good. And I think, we're not going to, are we going to win a million games? No. But I think that we're going to win quite a few, and we're going to talk more about that too. But I just think Cade has a real good chance to make the All-Star game, and I think he's going to have a great year. We're going to talk about him right now, about my projections for Cade. So I'm projecting that, I don't know where I come up with these tenths of a percent or whatever, but I got him averaging 24.7 points a game, 8.2 assists, which is a full assist more than he had last year. And I think that's going to really happen with the better players that we have, and guys are going to be making more baskets. I think Ivey's going to be hotter. Tobias is going to shoot the ball well. I think Beasley's going to shoot real well. And Tecchio. So he's got way more guys that can make shots that he's going to be passing the ball to. So I think his assists are going to go up significantly. His rebounding, he's had only like four rebounds he averaged last year, but I think I got him up to 5 rebounds this year. And it's hard, though, because you got a lot of guys on your team that are trying to get rebounds. And so that, limits him. I always use the example of Bill Laimbeer when he was on that team with Isaiah. I said in Isaiah's early years, we traded to Cleveland and got him for nothing. But, anyway, he led the NBA in rebounding. But then all of a sudden we get Rodman, Sally, James Edwards, Wood Edwards, and, a bunch of guys, and they all rebounded. So Laimbeer no longer was the league leading rebounder. So anyway, I think Cade's rebounds will go up slightly, but more importantly, I think that his scoring average is going to go up partway because I am cautiously optimistic that he's going to get more free throws. But I also think that he's going to shoot higher percentage, so that's going to raise. I think he's going to shoot around 47%. I think his three-point percentage is going to go up to about 37%. I'm pretty confident of that, and I don't think he's going to turn the ball over as much. I just think he's going to have an amazing year. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see if I'm right with his numbers. I think that Ivey is going to have, he had the best preseason of anybody. We all know that, but he's been a good player, and he's shown signs. Everybody's thinking like, oh yeah, he's shooting better because Fred Vinson. Well, I have no doubt Fred Vinson has probably improved his shooting percentage, but I think more of his confidence because he's had stretches. Unlike a lot of these guys that we talk about that aren't good shooters, Ivey's had some really good stretches where he shot the ball really well. And I do see some inconsistencies in his form in the past, and so hopefully Fred Vinson's got worked on those inconsistencies and they're firmed up. But I think that the biggest thing is JB. JB right off the bat said, I'm talking to him. JB right off the bat said, I'm going to stagger him and Cade. And so there are always all these positive things are going to him. Just the open communications that JB has with all of his players. And JB said, his staff, they're talking to the guys on a daily basis. I don't think anything like that was happening last year. I think that they have a plan, and we're going to talk more about the defense and why I expect our defense to be significantly better, even though we don't have guys who are our best defender is injured, and who knows when he's coming back, Asar. So I just think that it's going to be hard for Ivey. So the other thing is, just like you said with Laimbeer and the rebounds, when you got a lot of good rebounders, that it's hard to get more. So I think Ivey's going to be a much better player. I think he's going to average around 19.2 points a game. He averaged 18 like last year. So I think his assists might be a little more, 4.1, because he's going to handle the ball more. And I think he's going to get 4 rebounds a game. So if you watched last year, it's very fascinating. I really watched Ivey. He had stretches. He had the stretch of like 4 games where he blocked. He averaged like 2 blocks a game for a 4-game stretch. He was trying it all the time. Another thing that he had a long stretch of where he really did for not an extended period, but even more significant than the shot blocks, he gets offensive rebounds. So you got guys like him going after balls, and same thing with Asar and Holland and those guys. They get you a lot of possessions. Possessions are valuable. So I think that he's going to contribute a lot there. We're going to talk about his defense a little bit more later on. That JB's optimistic about that, but I just am excited for his season. And I get a big kick out of. I've never been down on him, and there's a lot of podcasters that were just trashing him the whole offseason and saying how bad he was and we got to trade him and all this stuff. And now they jumped on the bandwagon, so it's fine. But last year, to toot my own horn, Duren, I said before the season he was going to average 14 points and 12 rebounds, and he almost did that almost exactly. I mean, there was a couple tenths below those, I think, that he was for both, but I think he's going to average about 14.8 points. Again, I think he's going to be really good, but you can't. I hear people do these projections sometimes, and you project all these guys how many points they're going to score. Well, there's only so many shots to go around, and there's only so many points to be scored. And, of course, injuries play a big factor. Also, we're going to talk a little bit later about how many minutes a guy plays. So how do you project Simone Fontecchio? I think he's going to be great. I want him to start. He had that last preseason game. He was fantastic. But, if he plays 20 minutes or if he plays closer to 30 minutes or if he plays 18 minutes or 28 minutes, it's going to make a big difference on how many points he scores. So, and then shots matter too a lot. But I think that Duren's going to pass the ball better. I think they're getting the ball in the high post. We just got to hope that he doesn't turn the ball over as much, because he's a very good passer. He can make really good passes, but he likes to make the cool pass. He likes to be cool. He likes to throw this like behind the back on a dribble, a handoff. He'll like behind the back, no look bounce pass. Or when he gets a big rebound, he just likes to not look and bounce it to the guy. And I don't know. I just would just assume him just get the guy the ball. But anyway, he is going to be the biggest stat he's going to improve on is I got him down for 1.2 blocks. A guy that averaged in his first 2 years 0.8 blocks and 0.9 blocks. So that's a huge improvement. That's the thing. Shot blocking's hard, but the big thing is he's going after him. Even if he doesn't block it, he's altering and he's in help. I mentioned this last podcast or the one before where I just focused on him. Off the ball, I saw where he was at, and he was always in help. He was playing off his man. His man's going to get dunks. That we need to help the helper, and people need to back down and help him on his guy if he helps somebody else. But he is really, you can tell how much of a difference. He was nowhere to be seen last year. He was not even in the same area code when guys would drive to the basket. So I'm really optimistic that he's going to average a lot more block shots, which in turn is going to make a huge difference for our team. So there was a ranking, and again, that he was ranked on this one power ranking number 17 among all centers in the NBA, which you can think that's a slight. There's 30 teams in the NBA, so he's not quite even in the top half, but there's some real decent, good players that he's ranked ahead of. And I think there's a few guys that was better than that he's ranked behind, but I think that this year he's going to push ahead, just like I think Cade is going to. I think those guys that voted Cade number 67, I think that you watch next year, I think he's going to be way higher than that. So next is Tobias, and I think that the foundation of our team is Cade, Ivey, Duren, and Tobias. Those four guys are going to be the rock solid players on our team that are going to be, I think, the most consistent players on our team, and they're going to get the consistent minutes. And I'm just so thrilled about Tobias. I'm not going to lie, we paid more than we had to, but he, like I said, we don't know who we could have got else, who would have wanted to be here. We don't know how much we would have had to pay him. He wanted to come here, but if he wanted to come here, he should give us a discount instead of us paying him. I don't think anybody else was going to pay him over $20 million that we paid him. So, but I love him. I love who he is. I love everything about his attitude, everything the other players are saying about him, every quote from him. But I knew that before. I mean, he is a class act. He's a pro's pro, and sometimes I think some people say that too many times, but he is. And I think he is going to make a huge difference in our team and his leadership. And he, just as he recognized Cade's the number one leader, but he is going to be right there. and I think he's going to make a huge difference anyway. So, Fontecchio, I'm holding out hope that he gets to start, and I think that he was fabulous for us last year. He was 5 for 10 on threes in that last preseason game, and he just can stroke it. He's ready to shoot. He's a shooter. Like I said, Stu's not a shooter. Stu doesn't even want to shoot the ball, and even though he's shot really, really well, but Fontecchio, he's going to fire. He can catch and shoot quickly. He can also put the ball on the floor some. He's also going to defend some. He's a really good player. I just think that we would be better off. So I got him down for 15.2 points per game, but that's high. He averaged 16, but our team was so bad last year. So we got some better players, more scorers, and so that's going to make it hard for him. And I got him down for 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 49% from the floor, and 39% on threes. He shot over 40% for us last year, but we just got to see how many minutes he plays. So next I'm going to talk about Beasley, and I like Beasley more than I thought I was going to even like him, but he is, we talk about shooters, and they often put him and Hardaway in the same breath, but they don't deserve to be in the same breath. Beasley has been way higher percentage shooter, way more consistent, and I hate to trash on Hardaway. It's nothing against him, but he takes tough, bad shots. He's erratic and inconsistent. My biggest thing is he doesn't, just like I was mentioning, that Ivy gets those offensive rebounds, or Holland or Asar, they get balls. They get the 40-60 balls when they have only a 40% chance they get them. Well, Hardaway's the opposite. But I was jumping around. I was talking about Beasley. Beasley showed me so much toughness on defense. He got into it with 2 different teams this year, and he is, I'm going to keep saying this stat, the dude made 200 threes in the last 3 seasons. That is consistency. That is high volume. And last year he shot 43%. Everybody in the gym knows you can't let him shoot the 3. And he still made that many threes for a team, Milwaukee, that had Dame and Giannis and a little bit Middleton. So anyway, I like Beasley. I think he'd be a great guy to come off your bench and give you scoring off the bench. And so we'll just see what happens. But the hardest thing for me this season is going to be, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but Hardaway he's a veteran, and he's a well-respected veteran, and I'm sure he's coming to practice every day, fighting and playing with the edge. That's what the young players, our young players, all talk about, the veterans. And I'm sure Hardaway he's all business, but he's just not good enough. The other problem for me is, I want Beasley to play because he's a more consistent shooter and he takes better shots and he plays hard. He plays harder on defense. But the thing that Hardaway can't play is because I would rather Holland play, and I would rather Beasley play, and I'd rather Fontecchio play, and I'd rather Asar play. So if we didn't have players, and so we might need him. We might need these guys. That's one of the things I'm excited about this team. We are going to be able to overcome injuries, where last year we didn't. We couldn't overcome injuries because we were starting subpar NBA players a lot of the games anyway, and then when we got injuries, then we were picking guys up off the streets and having them play or start. So that's just tough, and that's hard to win when you got that. We could be in games and then all of a sudden lose games. And again, I'm so optimistic because I know that JB is going to make smart rotations. And again, Cade and Ivey, I think they're going to be successful because he talked about staggering before the season. Preseason, he staggered him. The last game he didn't because that was a plan that he just planned on playing the starters those few minutes. So he's going to stagger those guys. I even think that Trajan planned on him staggering because why haven't we signed another point guard? And it does leave us open if somebody gets hurt. And so I don't know, what's going to happen. I mean, obviously Sasser's going to have to play point, and we'll see what happens there. But Ron Holland got lucky, and Bobby Clipman didn't get lucky because we had these guys get hurt with the Asar out, and it gave Ron Holland a chance to play, and he showed what he could do. And he showed that he can do it on an NBA court against NBA players. He can get in their grill, and he can make them uncomfortable, he's not afraid of anybody, and he's going to get loose balls and offensive rebounds, and he's going to run the floor. And JB talks about how we want to push the tempo. JB was known as a slower paced coach, and so when you do defensive ratings, there's always over the years sometimes it's not true to what the real thing that's really happens on the court, because teams that run a slower pace and run the shot clock down allow fewer points, and so that's just it's deceiving sometimes. But I think Ron Holland is got the chance, and he got to show his shooting's still not good though. So that's the thing. We love seeing all those all that activity and all those great hustle plays that he makes. But if he's going to shoot under 30% in the 30% from the floor and 20% on threes, then even if he hustles, that's going to be hard to play him a lot. So we'll see what happens there, though. But Stu played great, and Stu, I think he's just embraced this role as being the backup center, and so I think that is really encouraging. And I'm not even going to project his stats because I don't think it's fair. I think he's going to play well every night. I think he's going to play more minutes some nights and less some other nights. I think he's going to score some nights and not so much other nights. I think it's going to be real inconsistent. I wouldn't be surprised if he has 14 one night and 6 the next night. And so I think it's hard to project him. And the same thing even with his rebounding. So Paul Reed I love, and I don't see where there's minutes exactly for him, but I hope somehow it works itself out. I talked before about how you need 3 centers because one of them almost always is hurt, and then sometimes they often get in foul trouble. So we'll see what happens there. But it's really heartbreaking that Clipman, I didn't think he was going to be in the rotation, but I would have loved to see him. He deserved to get a chance in the preseason because he would have got to play and got to show, to build on his summer league where he looked so good, knocking down threes. His shot looks real. His passing looked real. I mean, those you don't pass like that fluky. He just has vision, and he has just the ability to get the ball out of his hands and even behind his head or whatever, he would throw those passes. But JB, I think is really excited about him, and he's kept him close by during he's not been able to do anything. So who knows when he'll be able to start playing, because he hasn't been able to play 5-on-5 or any contact drills. So, but he likes the way that he passes, and he's keeping him close and watching film with him. And again, I jumped over to Sarr. One of my favorite players. I love watching him. And JB says he is an elite defender, and he said he eliminates guys from the other team, and that's what's we're gonna miss out on, because he could lock down even Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and guys like that. And Anthony Edwards, he is just perfect guy to guard anybody, and so we're gonna miss that. But JB loves all the stuff, and JB recognizes that. I swore last year that Monty never watched film of the players the year before, and based on the way he coached. So it's obvious that JB has really studied and watched and knows what they can do. But he said, how Sarr can eliminate guys on defense. He runs the floor really well. He puts pressure on the rim, and he can make plays. He can make good passes, and so he's just he's fast. And they say, well, we want to play faster, and he has grit, and so he's got this toughness. He doesn't show it. He doesn't act mean or tough like Holland. I think got a little nastiness in him and Beasley, but Sarr just plays, and JB loves his grit, and he thinks he would fit in perfect to our system. But just come back soon, Sarr. We need you. So JB, though, Monty talked about defense all the time, but I think he did nothing. But JB says that everything is intentional, everything that they do defensively, and I just love the way he's communicated with players individually and as a team. And like I said, he really talked to Ivey and Clipman, even though he's injured, and Sarr. But he says the guys have bought in to playing defense, and that everyone's committed. And that's what it takes. I know as a coach, you got some guys that are talented, but you got teams when it really gets going and guys really get after it, they motivate and inspire each other, and then that makes everybody do it. But he's prioritize defense every day. It's the first thing they do every day. So the players know we're going to work on our defense every day, first thing. And so coaches can talk and say a lot of things like, oh, yeah, we're going to be tougher on defense. But you have to make it happen. You have to make it real. He's really encouraged about Ivey's defense. And Ivey's always, I thought, tried hard. But he's been like sometimes running around like a chicken with his head cut off. He's just kind of spastic. But he's gotten way better. Everybody recognizes that. JB loves the way he's picked up guys full court, even in the preseason. And he felt like that can make a difference. He felt like by assigning him to the best guard on the other team, that Ivey's taken on that challenge. But because you guys, Ivey is, I said this before the season, Ivey's the guy that when everybody was trashing him and saying trade him and he's not going to be as good or he should be sixth man, he's the hardest worker. And that hard work doesn't make you great. And so, but it does make a difference. And JB knows he's the hardest worker on the team. He's the one in the gym. They've had to kick him out of the gym. And it's been that way his whole life, but he's spent a lot of time with Fred Vinson, but he's just always working on his skills. He takes everything to heart. And it was so sad to watch him have to overcome Monty, knowing that your coach doesn't have faith in him. And you could see, even though he always said the right things, never complained, never argued or anything, but you could tell that, a little piece of his heart was taken away from him. So anyway, let's talk about the Pistons, where we're going to fall in the standings. There's a lot of speculation about people, trying to get Cooper Flag and tanking and stuff. And so it's going to be interesting what happens. People don't usually typically start out tanking, and then as things go, they see where things are at. But the odds makers, people have the Nets rate as the worst team, so they're plus 165 to have the worst record. The Wizards are plus 250. The Blazers are plus 325. They got our Pistons number 4 but it's plus 900. So that's, I know for a team that was winning only 14 games and by far the worst team in the league last year, that's given some level of respect. And I listened to a podcast with Bill Simmons, who I highly respect, and Ryan Russillo, and they really have followed the NBA for the last 30 years, and they know it, especially Simmons, inside and out. So every year they go through all the plus minuses. They go through the whole league. They do it on multiple podcasts to get through all the leagues. And then they say if they would go over or under, the team's over under, and if it's a lock, that means that they're sure that it's going to happen. And so Pistons number is 25.5, and every guy took it over, and every guy said it was one of their locks. And their locks last year, in the last 2 years, are almost always accurate. They almost always are over or under whatever team they lock in on. So anyway, we still. I'm not expecting us. I wouldn't be surprised if we had the 5th worst record, because somebody that's above us might really start to tank, and I don't think we're going to tank. My hope is that we played great this year, that we win a bunch of games, that we have the 5th worst record, and we move up in the draft and get one of the top 3 players. There's 5 players that everybody's considered that are really good, and after that it's kind of average, but the top 2 are just exceptionally sensational. The 3rd guy is Ron Harper's son, Dylan Harper, that plays for Rutgers, and he's amazing. But obviously Cooper Flag and Ace Bailey are the 2 prizes in this draft. But the other guys after Dylan Harper are smaller guards, are still fantastic players, but it's just, we don't necessarily need another guard. So one of those other guys would be just phenomenal for us. So, but you got to take one step at a time. But so after the Pistons, the Bulls are ranked 5th, and everybody thinks that are they going to tank or they're not going to tank. They got some good players, and so we'll see what happens with the Bulls. But they are going to be inconsistent, so we got a chance to beat them. The Jazz, people think they're finally going to maybe tank. They kind of started out some years doing pretty well, but there's teams that we have a chance to beat. That's, I guess, a big part of my point is the Bulls, the Jazz, the Raptors, who are next, and the Hornets and the Spurs. Those are all teams that we can beat. And I think the Hawks are going to be surprise some people this year, but we still could beat the Hawks. And some of those teams aren't going to tank. At least the Hawks are going to tank because the Spurs get their draft pick, and the Clippers, who I think could be horrendous this year, but they're not going to tank because they owe Oklahoma City their first round pick. So I still think we could beat the Clippers, even though we only play them twice. Then after that, it's the Lakers, the Rockets, the Warriors, and I think we're going to win some of those games. But those bottom 5 or 6 teams, we have a really good chance to win a significant amount of games. But we can make history again, Piston fans. We made history last year, the worst kind of history, the longest losing record and the worst record in team history. I think we could make a huge leap this year. And I think that we're going to win about 32 games. So that's what I think we're going to win. But obviously, I still think that the bottom for us should be like 24, and the top for us should be like 34. And like I said, that everybody wants to make the play-in, and I'm fine. Can we make the play-in? I would be thrilled. There's a chance that the play-in number, so this last year it was 36. The 10th worst record was 36 wins. And so that is, we'd be jumping from 14 to 36. And so that's not impossible, but improbable. So we'll see what happens. Is there a chance that with enough teams tanking that somehow you can sneak into the 10th spot with, 34 wins or something? Maybe. We'll see what happens. But I'm excited for the season. There's been some contract signings. A really interesting one is Jalen Green signed the first rookie extension, I think, that's ever been. He signed 2 years plus a player option for the third year for over $100 million. So, he was a little bit erratic, but he's kind of being tricky. That gives him a chance to be a free agent and to get more money down the road if he hits. So he's gambling. He's getting some money, but he's, gambling on himself a little bit. But he's giving himself the opportunity to make more money than these guys like Cade. He could make end up more money than Cade. So I'm just glad that we signed him to his extension. Trey Murphy, one of my favorite players, he just signed a nice extension with the Falcons. Aaron Gordon just signed, with the Nuggets. So lots of things happening signing-wise. Big thing, I didn't think Monty would get a job, but Monty Williams got a job. Most of you probably have heard he's going to be coaching down near San Antonio. He's going to be coaching his son's high school team. So good luck with that, Monty. Have fun. You're still going to be getting $65 million over the next 5 years for not coaching a lick for the Pistons, but we're better off without you. Sorry to say, but I hope you have a lot of fun with your son. I got to coach my daughter, my granddaughter, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, and I hope he has the same. So, Killian Hayes, Monty's guy, he got waived by the New Jersey Nets by the consensus worst team in the NBA. He got waived by them, but I guess they said that he's going to pursue a contract with the Nets G League team. So good luck, Killian. We all make fun of Killian and stuff, and it's so bothersome that he played above Ivy, or that he played, and that he was so bad shooting wise. But he's a human being. He's not that bad of a player. But we signed a couple guys. We cut some guys, but then we signed Cole Swider to a two-way. He's 6'9" shooter. So Shams reports this, and so it was fascinating to me that Shams put in his little tweet that he's it said shooter. It said, free agent, forward, 6'9", shooter. But he is a really good shooter, but he played for the Lakers and the Heat some. This preseason, he averaged 8 points a game playing for the Pacers. And Rick Carlisle said he's an NBA player. So, and then there's the other guy we signed was, I don't know if I didn't write it very plainly, but it's Lanzas Williams. And I didn't say his first name right, but he got signed to a two-way. He was in the Clippers camp. He had played for the Heat and the Nets. And Swider played for the Nets, the Heat also. And so those guys, the Heat are famous for developing guys. So if they got some of their developmental benefits, that'll be interesting to see. But I can tell you, if you go on YouTube, you can watch Sweat Williams, he was a really good college player, but he's only 6'4", but that dude can get up. He got up and he just cocked it way back behind his head, took off from way far from the rim and just crammed it on top of somebody. So we'll see how he does. Obviously the two ways probably aren't going to have any role on the team, but we'll see what happens there. But anyway, I will be going to Cleveland for my pre-op appointment. I will be not podcasting after the opening. I'm sorry about that. I would love to do that. I'm so excited for the season. Hope I can watch them on my tablet. But I excited. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun, Piston fans. So just, it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna always be pretty, but I'm real optimistic. And let's go. Be the reason that somebody feels excited and happy. And go Pistons.